I'm Mike Bradner, and this is Capital Views, and we have with us today Micheal Johnson, who is the Commissioner of the Department of Education and Early Development. And Commissioner, we have a bill before us that we're calling the Reading Bill, and this is your opportunity to do a little explanation that many people are going to hear during the session. So tell me what it's all about.
Thanks, Mike. It's great to see you, and thanks for having me here. So the Alaska Reads Act is a bipartisan effort to provide policy statewide so that every student has the opportunity to learn to read. We know that reading is a critical predictor of success in school, and we know that the consequences of a student not learning to read proficiently by the end of third grade impacts the rest of their education and even their life, and there's lots of evidence to that. So the Alaska Reads Act represents an opportunity for the legislature to pass policy that we can implement in school districts, schools, classrooms across the state to provide quality reading instruction beginning in pre-K all the way through the third grade year to make sure that every student is proficient in reading.
So how does this work when you get right down to the student, you know, in the schoolhouse, in the classroom? I mean, you have a student that's deficient in reading. Of course, teacher training and these things come into play, but what kind of other assistance is possible?
Right. Well, the bill actually starts with pre-K, so before they get to kindergarten, and providing a half-day pre-K program for each school district based on quality standards, so that students, when they get to kindergarten and begin those learning those early skills in reading, they have the background and the ability to do that. And then in K through 3, the bill has an intervention piece. So every student will have a screener to screen to find out if they are on track to become a proficient reader. There'll be a dyslexia screener. And then if a student is identified as not being on track to be a proficient reader, then there has to be, the bill will require that there's an intervention plan for that student. So a student that's not on track will have an individual plan to address whatever the skill deficiency might be so that they can get back on track to be a proficient reader. It calls for parent notification and creates a consistent process to make sure, whether you're in a large school or a small school, that there's consistent processes, and we know a lot about good reading instruction, and making sure that we're applying what we know about good reading instruction in every school so that all students are proficient by the end of third grade.
Well, how does this work in a school that's relatively isolated? I mean, you have several teachers there, but you know, you can't share this between schools because, you know, travel and so on. I guess in the Yukon Flats and then in Yukon Delta and that kind of place.
Yeah. Good question. So, well, what we know a lot about reading instruction, and so good reading instruction can be applied in every school, regardless of size. But there does have to be a strong component of professional development, especially in some of our smaller schools have high teacher turnover, and so providing that professional development so that we're consistent in providing what we know is good reading instruction, even in those settings. It may be a traveling reading specialist that makes sure to go in and model good lessons and work with those teachers. But there's a lot we can provide online in those situations in terms of professional development and intervention strategies.
So of course, that depends on communities, you know, are well connected with the internet. I mean, where do we stand and how does that work with this?
Where do we stand with connectivity?
Yeah, and the fact, I mean, does that allow some more, you know, attention to reading?
So, you know, each year we get a little bit better with our connectivity in the state, and so it's reaching more and more of our communities, and I know that there's hardworking folks addressing that, you know, every day to make sure we increase that. And along with that, there's increasing opportunities online for reading intervention strategies, reading intervention programs, and professional development. And even, you know, in young students, there's some districts now providing speech therapy services using online models and practices.
Where does the funding come from? Funding's always an issue, and I know you're corralling a certain amount of existing funding, but is it going to have to be new money in this? Or?
There will be a fiscal note associated with the bill, and all the funding comes through the legislature. And so there's a fiscal bill attached to the note. There will be a modest expense, but I think the expense to implement well this bill will then make all the other money we spend on public education work better for kids.
So it's sort of corralling some of the existing money that's being spent in early intervention and so on now is going to be devoted to this goal. I mean,
that's correct. Districts already receive, funds for various programs, federal grants. We received a $21.5 million grant last year focused on reading. So we in the department are looking at all the grant money we receive and how we can focus that on reading instruction, and then districts will be doing the same thing along with the money that will be attached to the bill.
and if there's new money, that's up to the legislature,
That's,
in our circumstance to try to find
That's correct.
pockets of money that might be there.
That's correct.
And so you're reviewing this on the Hill now, and it's going to be before the legislature throughout probably the whole session. And I hear a lot of people say they want it well inspected. I mean, there's some concerns from some associations exactly how it works. And so that's going to be your job to be up there and work through those mechanics.
That's right. But I'm a big believer in our system of government and that process, and I think that makes the bill stronger to go through that process. And then also gives us a leg up when it comes to implementation. As we listen to the input and we listen to the committees debate the bill, then that gives us an opportunity to think even more about the implementation to make sure we implement whatever they pass well.
Commissioner, we're out of time already.
Thank you.
So it's a pleasure to have you, and this is going to be an interesting issue to watch.
Thank you.
I'm Mike Bradner, and this is Capitol Views, and we've been talking to Micheal Johnson, the Commissioner of Education
Thank you.
and Early Development.
Thank you.